Very good. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is John Goldberg, and I'll be the hearing officer for today. I work in the project management section at Public Works. My job as hearing officer is to hear both the department's presentation and then any appellants and any members of the public that wish to speak on the matter, take notes, kind of summarize them, and present them to the acting director. The director is then free to accept, reject, or modify my decision. And so that's the way that it'll progress. We'll start with the department, then we'll hear the appellant, then we'll go to members of the public. I ask that when you do make your presentation, you state your name and spell the last name for the record. I try to note that, you know, when I do, I make a very short kind of summary or highlights that I hear from what is being said and present those. It's not meant to be an exact recital of what you said. That's available on the recording if you need to hear that, but just a real very, very brief highlights of what I heard or understood to be germane in your presentation. So with that, can we call the first item? So the first item, number 2 on the agenda, is public comment. Members of the public may address their hearing officer on matters that are within the department's jurisdiction, but not on today's agenda. Are there any items for public comment? Hearing none, we'll close public comment and we'll move to item number 3 on the agenda. Item number 3 is order number 205412, 30 Van Ness Avenue, to consider removal of 4 street trees with replacement. Staff denied the removal and the applicant has appealed. So can the staff make the presentation, please?
Okay, everyone can see my screen?
Yep.
All right. So my name is Susan Nawberry. I'll be representing the Bureau of Urban Forestry tonight. So just a brief little discussion about street tree SF, although I don't think any of these cases relate directly to street tree SF and applications that seek to remove the tree that are not construction related. But basically, street tree, sorry about that. Street tree SF is it's our citywide maintenance program. It's managed by San Francisco Public Works. A census was done to assess the condition of approximately 125,000 street trees, and the census data is used to populate routine proactive tree pruning schedule. With that, we'll just go into our first case. Let me know if that's still. And everyone can still see my screen.
Yes. It's not the full screen. It's partial, and we have the slides, the whole presentation down below.
I unplugged my other monitor, so
okay.
Sorry about that.
No problem. There we go.
Okay. So you can see my presentation now?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, there we go. Perfect.
Okay, great. So Public Works Order 205412 to consider the removal of 4 street trees with replacement at 30 Van Ness Avenue. And the staff denied the removal application and the applicant has appealed. So these are 4 Lafostum and Confortis at 30 Van Ness Avenue. The first one or 4th one, we order trees with the flow of traffic, but is all the way on the right of that photo. And then the other 3 are right in front. And as you can see, they're mature and established. It's very difficult to establish mature trees that are healthy in this neighborhood and in general in San Francisco. especially with more and more frequent increasing drought like weather. It's more difficult to water the trees and establish them because this typical watering schedule isn't quite enough to establish new trees. So our staff would like the applicant to reconsider their approach to this building construction. My understanding is that there will be more levels added to the top of the building. And I understand that is extremely difficult construction, especially if one side of the building is Market Street, the other is Van Ness, and the other side of the building is Fell here. So there's a pedestrian throughway and I believe some sort of storage. So the Van Ness frontage is the proposal is to put a dewatering tank and other equipment. And what we would like to know is if these things have to happen on two different frontages or if they can be consolidated on Fell Street, because these are very mature and established trees, and Public Works would like developers to consider other access avenues before sending these sorts of plans to DBI or planning. And we would like to know if the trees were considered before this plan was developed, or if the tree removal application came up after this plan was developed, and if the trees could have been considered well beforehand. If so, if these trees could have been considered when the idea of putting new floors on this building was in its infancy, we're wondering if this sort of construction could have been placed on a different frontage or combined, because we have this frequent, this development tends to do these designs without considering the tree removal. With this in mind, the Bureau of Urban Forestry denied the removal of these 4 street trees to be consistent with how we handle these cases. And we ask the hearing officer to deny the tree removal with regard to the fact that we're unsure or uncertain if the trees were considered prior to this plan being developed. And then just lastly, just to also summarize a few things, the tree planting is required by Article 16. So whether or not there are trees present here, if there are no trees, they would have to add trees and pay in lieu fees anyway. There may be a net gain of trees, but we do feel that mature established trees are worth significantly more than young trees, because it takes so many resources and so many years for these trees to meet the same benefits as the established tree. But the project will be required to plant 1 tree for every 20 feet, and any tree that cannot be planted will be assessed as in lieu fees, and they will receive credit for any existing trees. And then that's just finally the view on Van Ness. You can see there's a pedestrian throughway, but it is unclear if any of the other construction has begun. So with that, the Bureau of Urban Forestry will conclude its presentation for 30 Van Ness.
Great, thank you, Ms. Nonberry. Would the appellant like to speak, or the applicant?
Yes, we have Patrick Hamlin who's going to speak. I'm going to promote him to panelist and he will share screen.
Okay, thank you.
You're now showing as a panelist, but you will need to unmute your phone again or your device. Thank you.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Okay. 1 second here while I pull up my presentation.
No problem, take your time.
Okay, are you able to see what's on the screen?
I am, it looks good.
Okay, great. All right, so to start, my name is Pat Hanlon. It's spelled Hanlon, and I'm the development manager for 30 Van Ness, which when complete will be a new mixed-use office, retail, and residential building. It will also include 83 affordable housing units. I am here today seeking the removal of 4 existing street trees along Van Ness, same ones Susan noted. And this is for the placement of critical construction equipment that cannot be placed elsewhere, and where these trees cannot be adequately protected during construction. We are, however, proposing a more robust landscape plan, including additional trees that would not be possible with the existing configuration. 30 Van Ness is a highly constrained site with a host of unique challenges. We are effectively a peninsula with 3 busy streets surrounding the site and an adjacent 2-story building to the east. To the south, we have historic Market Street corridor where the street space use is restricted and a Muni station entrance is also located. I'd like to also note along this street, we're preserving and protecting 5 trees that are adjacent to the property. So those are not being affected in any way. And to the north, we have to the north on Fell Street, because of traffic patterns, this is the only space that's available for truck and material delivery, as well as general site access. So, going back to Susan's question, this is an area where really trucks need to come in and out. It's not a space where, we did consider putting staging items there, but we really can't stage anything. It's really for material and personnel access. So that really leaves us with Van Ness, and which has a number of constraints and conflicts itself. This includes limitations due to the BRT line construction, Caltrain jurisdiction on 101. So we're not able to move our equipment west into the street. And then on the sidewalk itself, we have PG&E vaults, electrical service, and street lights that are all, I know it's kind of hard to see in this diagram here, but they're all items that are conflicting with placement of really a lot of our equipment. So our options are very limited to really only these locations where we have trees 1, 2, 3, and 4 noted.
30 seconds remaining.
Oh, thank you. And so I do want to just show you here quickly our space for a better, more beautiful green public space. We'll be
Mr. Hanlon,
providing-
and Cerise, just to let you know, if you need a few more minutes, we'll let you go and finish your presentation. So don't feel you need to.
Oh, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
So I do, then if it's all right, I'll just finish my thought on the
Okay.
previous page here. Just that, we do have, because of all of this, it severely limits where we can put our dewatering tank, where we can put our hoist areas to these locations. And all of this has really been a careful and extensive coordination with multiple city agencies. So moving back to this slide, we have given a lot of thought to our landscape plan around the site. At the south corner, so at Van Ness and Market, we're creating a new public plaza. Like I had noted previously on Market Street, we're preserving and protecting the 5 existing trees there. To the north on Fell Street, we're providing 2 new street trees where none currently exist. And then we are providing 10 street trees along Van Ness, so a net 6 new trees along this area. And those will be the same species, and the size is subject to city discretion. So just kind of in conclusion as well, on this, so while the logistics for construction equipment is the cause for this request, and really we have looked at this every which way, it's also worth noting that the proposed plan with the 10 street trees here on Van Ness would not be possible with the existing tree configuration due to intersection and streetlight clearance requirements. So we think we're also providing, a pretty great public space here. So thank you for your time and consideration, and I look forward to speaking with you more about it.
Okay, a couple questions if I may.
Yep.
When you spoke about coordination with city departments, was Buff included in that coordination or not?
It was part of the request process. We included Buff. I have my colleague Dan here as well, who may be able to speak to that.
Yeah, we've gone through the street improvement permit application, and Bureau of Urban Forestry will be one of the agencies signing off on that.
Okay, but I mean, Mr. Hanlon said there's a lot of coordination as the plan was developed, so I guess it didn't sound as though urban forestry was included in that coordination.
Not until maybe 4 months ago.
Okay, so after the, okay. And then on the trees, if your appeal is granted, what's the net over what's required as a minimum by the city? In other words, I know the city requires a certain amount of street trees per linear feet.
Mhm.
And so is this going to be will this exceed the city's minimum, or is this going to meet the city's minimum?
It's my understanding that it will exceed. However, I would need to confirm and get back to you on that.
Okay. And what kind of commitment would you make to maintaining and preserving the trees? As Ms. Nauberry noted, trees have a very hard time on Van Ness Avenue. And those 4 that are being proposed for removal have somehow managed to not only survive, but thrive. So I guess what kind of a commitment would the project make towards these trees?
I can add to that. Presently, we don't have an irrigation system out to the new trees. They're hand watered. If it would give Bureau of Urban Forestry more comfort that they'll survive, we could run irrigation lines to each tree. We'll certainly stake them properly and leave the staking in place. We can, put written agreement and mitigation measures together around those 2 items.
Okay, all right. I think that's all the questions I have for now. Was someone else going to speak on this?
If the question is to me, no, we have no other speakers lined up.
Okay, thank you. Are there members of the public that wish to speak? Cerise, anyone with their hand up, or?
I don't see any hands at this time.
Very good. I'll give Ms. Nauberry a chance to say anything in conclusion, and then Mr. Hanlon, if you want to say anything in conclusion, we'll do it that way, since we have time tonight.
Would the project be willing to install 36-inch box trees? Because they're a lot larger and more resistant to vandalism. And in doing so, will they consult an arborist in the watering needs for 36-inch box tree?
Hi, Susan. Yes, absolutely. We would absolutely consider the 36-inch trees, and we will work with an arborist.
That's all the questions I have.
Okay, Mr. Hanlon, anything else that you wish to speak on?
No, other than to say thank you both for your time, and really appreciate it.
No, thank you very much. Thank you for the presentation. Good luck on your project.
Thank you, sir.
All right, with no public comment, we'll conclude item number 3, and we'll move on to item number 4. Order number 205-413, 99 Missouri Street. The order supersedes order 205-335 to consider the removal of 8 street trees with replacement. Staff denied the removal, and the applicant has appealed. Ms. Nauberry, do you want to start?
Yes, so yes, we denied the removal of 8 street trees. the proposal is with replacement. We did have to postpone this from the last hearing. And the removal application is for these 8 jacaranda trees. And this is the site plan. However, the inspector, evaluated the trees and the site plan and determined that the trees could remain even with the construction, because the construction doesn't really need to, it doesn't need to remove these trees for any sort of pertinent construction activities, and that the removal application was primarily aesthetic. And just so that we all understand, jacaranda trees are very odd trees. They're tropical. So they're summer deciduous, and this is a picture of this frontage this year of January 2021, and they're in full leaf. So they tend to have leaves in like the coolest time of the year where there's more moisture, and then they drop all their leaves, and then they have a bunch of flowers in the springtime, and there's a bunch of bright purple flowers, and then they look kind of oddly like this for like another 4 months out of the year. And so you just have to think of it as them being sort of reverse deciduous. They're healthy, they're putting on growth, they're photosynthesizing, so they're putting on wood and they're sequestering carbon. So we don't think that this is a removal that should be prioritized or approved at this time. The sidewalk basin, you can see in the upper right-hand photo, it's small, but trees of this size should have basin expansion. So we don't recommend removing the tree and leaving the well that size. We recommend expanding the basin as the tree gets larger. So the inspector can definitely guide the developer on repouring the sidewalk when they get to the street improvement phase and preserving roots. But we also advise that an arborist be hired to also look at the roots and also implement a tree protection plan, which is required for all construction. So again, this is like another photo. This is another photo of the jacarandas, and as I've said, they look like they don't have leaves and they're dead, but that is living tissue. Those limbs are supple and flexible. They have the capacity to put on leaves. They're just summer deciduous. So I know it seems odd aesthetically, but we just expect to see green leaves in the summertime, and these trees just put on leaves at a different time of year. But they are healthy. Again, so to emphasize that they're summer deciduous, they're not in decline. So this is just going over like what all the trees look like here. So the inspector looked at everything, and this one has flowers, so it's doing a little bit better, and it's probably because it's a little older, a little more mature. But again, all these trees are actually healthy, even though it looks a little odd. And these ones actually, they look better for summer than a lot of the other jacarandas. So that's why we're not recommending removal, and we don't want to approve the removal application, because again, it takes a lot of time, energy, and resources to establish trees, and the developer is responsible for that. But a lot of times the developer might sell the building, and while the responsibility transfers to the new building owner, it takes a lot of work to get the new owner on board with replanting the tree that gets vandalized, dies, or missing. It results in a net loss of trees when we remove trees for construction, especially if they don't need to be removed, because we end up seeing a lot of trees. It's just very difficult. If they die in that first 3 years, it takes another 6 months for us to get the person back on board with replanting the tree, and then the process restarts another 3 years. So you lose a lot of time with that basin just being an empty basin. And it's not to say that like all developers will do this, but it's just San Francisco is a very difficult place to plant trees, and people aren't supervising and watching the trees all day long. So sometimes they get vandalized, and there's just a lot of logistics in getting them replanted and watered, and planting shock also is a factor. again, so just as they typically look like this in wetter months, and just right after spring. But they're summer deciduous, and I know they don't look great in those photos, but they do most of the time have leaves like this. So we just don't think that these are a removal candidate, as they're healthy and there's not really any logistical concerns that hinder construction. So to be consistent with how we handle all these cases and to preserve tree canopy, the Bureau of Urban Forestry denied the tree removal at 99 Missouri.
Great. The only question I have is on the lean of some of the trees. Is that an issue?
No, trees tend to, so that's an established lane, and as long as the trees aren't correct, if they're not correcting, so that's why some trees they'll have a lean, and then their canopies you'll see they start growing upward towards the sky. It's called phototropism, and trees will lean because they are growing towards light. Or in San Francisco, as I said, it's very difficult to establish trees. The young trees often get hit, so they'll get hit, get a little bit uprooted, and then put out new roots with a little bit of a lean. But trees have put on wood to balance out things like lean. They put on structural wood. It's called tension wood.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. Is the applicant available to speak?
We have Ken Weber, and you should
Okay.
go ahead and be able to speak.
Hello, good evening. My name is Ken Weber. I am the Development and Facilities Manager for Blue Dot Design and Manufacturing, the tenant for this space. And I've been responsible for putting in this application for the removal and replacement of these trees. We have been redeveloping this property for the last 2 years. We are not the owner, but we are the long-term tenant. We have a 15-year lease on this space, and we are doing a complete rehab on this space, which does include the addition of 5 new trees, in addition to these 8 trees that we would like to remove and replace. While the consideration is mostly aesthetic while we want to do it, we did consult an arborist and an urban forester from Hort Science in kind of our research phase. And it was their opinion that those trees are, their exact words were, have low suitability for preservation because of their poor health and significant structural defects that cannot be mitigated. I expect they will continue to decline with or without construction activity. Based on my observations, I recommend removing the jacarandas and replacing them with a drought-tolerant, utility-friendly tree that is adapted to the location. In response to that, and with the 5 trees we're putting on, we are proposing replacing those with lemon bottle brushes, which is from the SF street tree list that appears to be a more suitable tree for that area.
Okay, Mr. Weber, do you have that report that you can share?
I do. Can I share my screen?
Okay, do you need to, okay, just a moment, I'll promote you to panelists and you can share.
And I guess the other question, has that been shared with the Bureau of Urban Forestry?
That was part of my original submission that I sent in.
Okay.
Sorry here.
Okay, now that I've promoted you, you'll need to unmute yourself once again.
Okay, so this was a arborist urban forester consultant that we hired back earlier this spring to look at the trees and assess on site. They analyzed each of the trees. Let me know if I'm scrolling too fast.
No, it's fine.
And then there's summary and recommendation.
Okay. If you don't mind, if you could email that to Cerise, we'll include that in my review.
Okay.
You would email it to urbanforestry@sfdpw.org. I'll put it in the chat as well.
Okay, thank you very much.
If it was submitted in the removal application, we should have it on file, and we'll just make sure. We can also double check to make sure that we gathered that and put it. We might not have uploaded it to our permit record, which may have. So then it might not have made it to John Goldberg. But if you did submit it to the inspector, we have it.
Yeah, I did submit it when I've been speaking with Marcus Dotson, I believe was his name. And in that report, they do mention the lean of these trees as a specific call out for something they were concerned about. That's obviously, it doesn't look very healthy to me. I'm not that's just a aesthetic observation. We also have, the actual overall maintenance of the trees appear to be in pretty bad shape.
Okay, so your basis for the recommendation is aesthetics and then also the overall condition of the trees.
Yeah, and to address the concern about them not being maintained, we have a long-term 15-year interest in maintaining these trees. We are a furniture showroom. We've taken a lot of pride and care in updating this building. So maintaining the aesthetics and liveliness of these trees is very important to us, and there would be a maintenance plan put in place.
And if the trees were approved for removal, how many trees are you proposing to put in?
We would do it. We were 1 for 1, so we'd take out 8 and we put in 8. A total of 13 trees altogether, because we have 5 additional trees per our street improvement permitting. So we have to have a total of 13, but we want to remove these 8 and replace them.
Okay, and what size would they be?
They are 24-inch box trees.
And is there irrigation would there be irrigation to them?
There is not. We'd have to irrigate them manually. But that's we could put a plan in place for that.
Okay, all right. Ms. Dauber, anything else you want to follow up on? Or excuse me, Mr. Weber, anything you want to conclude with?
That is all.
Okay, Ms. Nauber, anything you want to follow up on or?
Just in case for some reason this doesn't get said, if these trees are approved, I'm worried about 24-inch box being vandalized. So just make sure if these are approved that the inspector lets you know what kind of caging can be done.
Mhm.
That you might see them. Friends of the Urban Forest puts like a chicken coop sort of thing around the trees. They stake them and it keeps people from grabbing them and vandalizing them.
We would be as concerned about that as well. So we want these trees to succeed.
Okay, anything else from you, Mr. Weber?
That's all.
Okay,
I appreciate
very
your
good.
time this evening.
No, thank you. Thank you for your presentation. Any members of the public wish to speak on this matter? All right, hearing none, we'll close. Do you have anyone?
I was just gonna say, I don't see any hands.
Okay, great. Thank you, Cerise. So with that, we'll close item number 4 and we'll move on to item number 5. Order number 205-414, 1908 Buchanan Street. To consider removal of 1 street tree without replacement. Staff denied the removal and the applicant has appealed. Ms. Nauberry.
Yes, so this is a large Zelkova. It's very healthy and vigorous. And the removal is for a new garage. And so as you can see on the right, but there's a car parked to the right of that house. So it's it's like slightly straddles that property line. Well, so the curb cut basically belongs to this right-hand neighbor here.
Okay.
So they do have a place to put a vehicle. So we want to point that out for right now. Like there appears to be a place for a vehicle here. What the ownership or kind of agreement is with that space is unknown to us, but you can see that the tree proposed for removal is very large, healthy. It's a tree that provides a lot of benefits. And again, in a city where we're losing large amounts of canopy quickly due to construction and the difficulty of replacing and establishing street trees. And the garage is proposed right where the tree is, or right next to the tree, more or less in the footprint. And so that would eliminate a tree site completely. So that'd be a complete and total loss of this tree. So this is basically kind of an explanation of why the tree needs to be removed. And again, we denied this tree removal. But this is the explanation that that if this driveway would be too narrow, this green area is kind of the existing tree here. The garage is getting shifted. But basically, what we're suggesting is that the driveway be a curve, and because the garage is already it's already being widened out to this property line here. So the curb cut of the neighbor is very, very, very large. And so the curb cut would only need to be expanded a little bit to fit some sort of like curved structure, curved driveway. And that's kind of just, that green would just show that the neighbor's curb cut is really wide already because they have a garage. And then the garage is being proposed like all the way to that lot line. And so they would have all this space to be able to make it into that driveway there, because this curb cut it's narrow now, but you could expand it a little bit, kind of halfway to where they have their proposed curb cut, and they could have a garage or a driveway, and we could have a tree. So we don't think that we should be thinking in like this sort of linear pattern. But even if this wasn't like 100% feasible, like right now, there does appear to be a place to put that vehicle. There's some sort of driveway. It doesn't seem like an immediate need, and that tree cannot be replaced. It can never be replaced, really. That tree is like a large stature tree that would take years, decades to replace. Our inspector, so another inspector drew this, because this is how he sees it, is that there's plenty of room to, like, if the garage is already getting kind of widened out to that property line anyway, kind of include both parts. It kind of straddles that open space and part of the home, and it leaves the tree in place and gives everybody an option that, it utilizes that large curb cut. And in planning, we could definitely, as the Bureau of Urban Forestry, speak to the need to preserve trees, because planning does have a desire to preserve canopy as well. And we could also speak to the need to share that curb cut. And if there were some sort of waiver needed for that, we would speak on behalf of that need. And then our inspector appraised the tree, and it does have some defects, which she took into full account. She did multiple appraisals just to try to make sure it was as fair as possible. And the appraised value is $15,100. We would like the project to consider an alternate driveway alignment, consult an arborist, and develop a tree protection plan to build an alternate driveway and retain the tree at the same time. But there is precedent for paying the appraised value of a tree, of the total, especially if it's a total loss of a healthy established tree. And with that, the Bureau concludes this presentation, and we ask the hearing officer and the director's office to please consider denying this tree removal.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Norberry. Is someone here to speak on the applicant?
Yes, we have Catherine Lee.
All right.
Go ahead, you should be able to speak.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, Ms. Lee.
Hi, thanks for allowing me to speak. My name is Catherine Lee, Catherine with a C, Lee, L-E-E. And I, along with my husband, Scott Murray, are the homeowners, and our architect, George Sun, is also on the line, and he may address some points that I make if I stumble
Okay.
on something.
That's fine.
Because we are very quickly trying to address the last couple of slides that Ms. Nawberry presented, because those were not shared with us earlier. So I don't, we're kind of on the fly going to address that, since that is a new thing that we're seeing right now. Can I see?
So, Ms. Lee, I mean, we can go on and we can make recommendations now. If you and your architectural team want to go back and review.
No, I can answer all the points raised. I just,
Okay.
but I just want to note that the suggestion is new to us, but there's a
Okay.
simple explanation for why, even though it's new, we have a very compelling point against it. I'd like to share a brief presentation. Can I be given?
Yes, just one moment and I'll promote you. And once you come back in, you'll need to unmute yourself again, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, can you still hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Okay, so very briefly, so I just want to go over the steps of the process that we went through, just since Ms. Nawberry mentioned it earlier for the first project. I just want to be clear that we were very mindful of the process and spoke with various people in the department to, get comments early on, guidance on doing this the right way. So we communicated, myself, our architect, George Sun, and we communicated with both Ms. Nawberry and Ms. Sarah Stacy in October. We were given a checklist and told to submit an application, which we did in February 19, 2021. And then I requested an update on August 16th, at which point I was told that a review had not been done, but it would be done by the end of the month. During that time, between October and August, I want to note that we had two neighborhood notification events, and neither of them yielded any comments. And very recently, planning has given us approval. Once the last neighborhood notification ended without any comments, they said that they will be approving our application. So we are about to get our site permit for these drawings that we submitted in February. So this is a one-car garage addition, and it's to address the need for parking in a very densely populated, high-traffic neighborhood. The existing parking pad is partly on the neighbor's property. We were being very mindful of the fact that this about 30 inches of that driveway does not belong to us. That curb cut, we don't have access to. We were also trying to be mindful of the second tree. There was some consideration between our architect and us about perhaps putting in a curb cut and a garage in between the trees, but we realized there just wasn't enough space and we would be losing both trees. There are also existing utility lines there. And also the driveway there would be so short, we would have to dig down even further to have the slope for a garage. So this was what our architect presented to the department about why we have proposed what we have. That the car in that photo shows, it's in the driveway, but it's in the driveway, of which, as you can see, about 1.5 feet to 30 inches, somewhere around there, is part of the next door neighbor's property. So we were trying to create a driveway and a garage that would be solely on the property that we own, rather than our neighbors who may have other plans for their garage, other plans for that curb cut at some point. The department is now suggesting that we could consider this wide curb entry into a garage that I guess would be at an angle. We can't guarantee that the neighbor at some point will want to gain access to what is legitimately their property and do something different along that property line. So the proposal that we somehow come up with a plan that would require our neighbor to essentially give up their property for us to have access to a driveway, we can't guarantee that.
Also digging down.
Okay, you know, I'm not an attorney, so I don't want to, but my understanding is the sidewalk that you would cross to get into the driveway is public property, public access. And so if you curved in from the curb, you know, kind of in a angled entry of the driveway, that doesn't impact the neighbor's property rights. But like I said, I'm not an attorney, and so that's something that needs probably to be vetted.
No,
more fully.
well, what I'm also saying is that if you look at that gray strip going down the length of the perimeter, of the southern perimeter, the car would have to cross that path in order to get into the garage. And there's no, I mean, we can't predict that at some point the neighbor will want to build on that strip. They may want to extend their own garage.
I guess I'm not.
I wish,
I guess I'm not following the.
am I able to, can you see?
I can see the gray strip, but I mean, right now you're not proposing the driveway going straight there, are you? You're going to go under the house.
No, our proposal is that, can you see the cursor?
Yes.
Okay, so the drawing and the architectural drawing and the proposal for which we've received the planning review, the planning committee's approval, is that it would be here. The tree would have to go because the garage would go, sorry.
Sorry. Hey, we're all learning how to use these Zoom things. Don't worry about it.
Sorry. The driveway would go here.
Okay,
because right now, the car that was in the photo was right here.
correct.
It's on part of the neighbor's property.
I understand that part.
So right now, the department is suggesting that we do a very wide entry this way and somehow go into a garage. And I'm saying this is not our property. At some point, our neighbors may build this way so that we may not have proper access. We can't assume that they won't do something to their.
Okay, if you move the cursor down to the street line.
Yes,
Okay, so you're proposing a straight-in entrance.
correct.
Okay,
Straight
so if you
in.
move the cursor, go back to the street line down at Buchanan Street, move the cursor a little bit to the right, just a little to the right. So that's public property. My understanding, and again, I'm not an attorney, my understanding is the street's public right of way, as is the sidewalk. So if you came in a little bit of an angle, I think is what the department's proposing. Let's say you started at the red line, right there, and then swung into the driveway that way with a slow sloping curve into the driveway. I don't understand
There's not
how
enough,
that's going to impact the neighbor's property rights.
there's not enough space. You're asking us to come in like this somehow?
Well, cut it down to the driveway, whatever the driveway is, yes. And I guess I don't understand why, or I'm asking why that would not work, because I don't know.
Because it cuts into the, am I,
Yeah, they can hear you.
can you hear me? Hi, this is Scott Murray. I'm
Okay,
Catherine.
go ahead, sir.
Hi.
And you're
So-
the other property owner?
Yes, and
Yeah,
Okay,
So-
MURRY, Scott Murray.
okay. Thank you, sir.
you're welcome. It's very narrow right now. It barely fits one car. I've tried this in our car, and we talked about it with a little bit with George's son. In order to go in at an angle, we would pretty much have to take out all of the gray box. I mean, it would take out
Which gray box?
that middle gray box right there.
No, they're not.
So. Yes, it is. So it's a really difficult transition point for a car. And it also goes down significantly during that period. So we'd have to modify how far we dig. I mean, it would be very, very difficult and challenging construction.
Okay, so the gray box is where the new garage is.
No. Go ahead, Kath. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Kath.
No, the gray box is not, at one point, Sarah Stacy had suggested why we couldn't consider that. That small gray box in the middle is something that we considered and we can't do. And right now, you are suggesting that we build a garage here that.
Well, I'm not suggesting anything. I guess I'm trying to understand. I'm not clear where the new driveway is going to be. In other words, this representation shows the existing driveway. Is that correct?
No, this shows the proposed.
This is the proposed plan.
Well, I mean, proposed overlaid the existing. So this is the existing car. This is the existing driveway that you saw in those photos,
Okay, including the gray.
including the gray, correct?
And you're gonna make it smaller to not include the gray. You're gonna expand your house to not include the gray.
We're going to begin the garage to not include this gray strip. It's going to start
Okay,
at. this
that makes
perforated
sense to me.
line.
Then
And
I
go
guess
this-
what's confusing me is the thing that says 6.5 width is not enough.
I'm going to George, can you let our architect, George, answer some of these?
Sure, absolutely.
Do you guys have a plan, because I can pull up your proposed plan, although we have all our markings on it, to show that was what that gray square is where Sarah originally said, can you put it in between here? And then this is kind of like why it's not possible, but then they're also using this diagram to show, so that dotted blue line and that red line is like really where the driveway curb cut is going to be.
Yes, the curb cut would be between this red line and the dotted blue right here. And I think George, our architect, is here and he has his hand up. Is he allowed to speak?
Sure, absolutely.
Can I share the file that I have? Sorry.
That'd be great. It'd be
Just a
helpful. I
moment.
apologize. I'm not able to follow better.
Yeah, just one moment and I'm going to promote you, Mr. Sen.
Thank you.
And Mr. Sun, you're the project architect?
Can anybody see this?
I can see that. Yes, thank you.
So this is a proposed drawing,
Okay,
and you can see that, I don't know, you can probably see my cursor. You see the the magenta line.
correct.
to the
That's
right.
I'm assuming that's the property line.
Right, and then
Okay.
you see these two blue lines, which just says 9 feet. That's the driveway that we're proposing. And then you see
Okay.
the square, that's where the trees currently existed.
Okay. Let me ask you this. How wide is the sidewalk from the property line to the curb cut?
I believe I think it's standard 15 feet perhaps.
15 is what you're saying?
I think 15, yeah.
Oh, okay. So it's not a huge amount. Okay, that's fair enough. Okay. And what you're suggesting is the car couldn't make that swing in on the right side and leave the existing tree in place.
Right, because we don't, like Catherine said, we don't know what's going on, especially with this corner right here.
Well, I'm not sure, and again, I can't speak to it, but I'm not sure that property owners can place things in the public right of way. So my sense is the sidewalk should remain open and clear, but I'm not one to opine on that.
So this is a normal in San Francisco that we could just curve our driveway onto the sidewalk and get into our driveway, our garage door?
I'm not aware of anything that would prohibit it. Ms. Newberry, or are you able? Yeah, I mean, I think that's what the department is proposing.
We've seen it done. It's just a matter of sharing the curb cut, which is in the right of way.
Right, but I think what my client's saying now, what if the adjacent neighbor in the future, they're going to do something to their property and then they're going to get rid of the curb cut? Are they not allowed to in that case?
Right.
Is
So
that curb cut going to be part of our property?
so the curb cut is solely the jurisdiction of public works. So public works says, no, you can't get, public works would say that driveway is being used for that garage. They can't just get rid of an entire curb cut in the right of way just because, I don't know, they get rid of that garage and turn it into an ADU. But so the private property, yeah, we cannot tell them what to do with what's behind the property line there. But in terms of everything in the sidewalk, we can say that no, that curb cut needs to remain, or it would definitely be put into consideration by BSM.
Okay.
But so the question is, like, assuming like everything up in that red dotted area, let's say the property owner decided to widen their garage and build out. The question is, if the property were built out to that corner, can the car make that turn with that tree? Like if we pretend this is like built out and not an alleyway.
Yeah, well, I think we have to take a look at it.
So here's, I mean, it doesn't matter to me. I can kind of make a recommendation if you guys, if the applicants or the want and the department want to discuss this and see if they can work it out. If you want to do the research, we can continue this to the future. It's really up to you guys to all decide how you would like to proceed.
We're more than happy to consider options that would preserve the tree and allow us to safely enter a garage. And this information would have been really helpful months ago when we were drafting the drawings, waiting for the application to go through the process.
I don't disagree with you. So let me suggest, Ms. Newberry, can you make a commitment that if the applicants are willing to consider this proposal, that we can get back to them with some rapidity?
Yes, definitely. The inspector who was assigned to this had left for National Guard, and we did not have the staffing to process all of her permits, but she's back, and we hired like another person. So we definitely will be able to get back to them quickly.
Okay, so as opposed to the generic quickly, let's commit to some dates so that the applicants can move forward with their building project and that the department can move forward with getting this resolved. So today's the 20th. Can we commit to do something by the end of the month? Mr. Sun, you're the architect, and Ms. Norbury, I guess you're representing the department. Can we get this resolved by the end of the month? See if there's an agreement or not?
So I don't know if we would approve the tree just because they can't get in, because we're still, the point too is that we value the tree more than like parking in San Francisco.
No, I understand that. But I guess by the end of the month, either the plan, an adjusted plan that the Suns will, the Suns, Murray, Ms. Lee all agree to, and the department either agree to agree or you agree to disagree, and we'll be back for a future hearing. Can we do that by the end of the month?
Oh yeah, so if they resubmit, we postpone, we write the decision to say postpone.
Okay.
Or something.
Continued.
Continued. Yes, thank you. And then they submit their plan, or they say they submit and say we cannot work around this, even though you've come up with this interesting idea. And then we reschedule them for a hearing.
Okay, so by the end of the month, Mr. Sun, if you could work on the turning radius and whether that works with the cars that are proposed for the driveway in the garage, and if that turning radius and the whatever it is to get the car in the garage without having to be an Indy car driver and making it through, that a reasonable person can get into the garage. If that works, then I think the department and I suspect your clients and the owners will be happy, and if not, we'll be back and we'll make some calls. Does that work for everyone on the?
Yeah, I think that works for us. I think that what I want to find out from Susan is that how close can we drive to the tree trunk? And that really, so because that help us.
Yeah.
What are our constraints under this situation?
Yeah.
Because all we saw was little dotted lines, right?
Yeah.
So if we could get more guidance from you guys, and that would certainly help expedite the process.
Yeah, if there's concrete there, I mean, it's like you can drive as close as you're comfortable, but it's the bigger concern is if you're grading for a slope for that driveway, if this sort of configuration that is a different inspector that came up with this solution. So that's also why we're coming up with this later, because he saw this case and said, I think you should do it this way, and got involved. And so the other thing with driveways is grading has to occur to slope properly to a curb cut. Obviously, you've all seen a driveway. So if that grading goes below these critical roots, which is every root within the drip line, if it damages more than 25%, that means it's like not feasible. But if the sloping can be done without grading below the root zone, then we would say it's feasible.
Okay.
Well, I think that most I don't know if you could hear me. My internet is unstable.
No, I can hear you.
Okay, good. So most of the grading is going to happen right around the property line and behind the property line. And therefore, I think that I'm going to point out right here, that's where the garage door located. So we actually set it back way back to get that proper slope. There might be some grading that before the property line, but I at this point we're not sure because we don't have a precise survey.
Okay, and I'll just throw in some unsolicited advice. Maybe, maybe you get an arborist or somebody, and if the department approves and it works with the department, trim it up nicely so that you have a good set about what you need to do, and then you can decide what cars are going to go in and whether the radius works or not. And then, between the owners and you, Mr. Sun, and Ms. Nawberry's department, you can decide if it works. And so we'll commit that by the end of the month, you'll agree to agree or agree to disagree, and either we'll see you again or not. Is that fair? Is everyone good with that?
Well, can I get clarification on this? Because,
Sure. Well, as much as I can give you.
well, yes, I mean, the timeline is the thing that is really, I would like some firmer commitment. So by the end of the month, I mean, we will get in touch with Ms. Nawberry's office about this. I'm sure George is already thinking of the numbers here to make this work. And if the agency still does not approve, or rather, if we show that a curved entry will not work, will we have to come back for another hearing?
If you're appealing the department's decision, yes. And so I guess what Ms. Lee is asking for is a commitment about when they can get back on calendar. So when could, so can you expedite their placement on the calendar from a continuation?
Yeah,
Okay,
we
so
don't have very many backlog cases, so we could put them in, we have to do a 7 to 10 day notification period. So, if we get to, we happen to discuss this 5 days before the next hearing, it won't happen then. But we're doing 2 hearings a month, so it might happen 2 weeks later. And then, yeah, like I said, Sarah's back full time and she's very responsive when she's here, not fighting fires. So she can get back to you very, very quickly within a day or a few days about, like, guess this will work, or fine, you've shown that you can't work around it, I'm gonna approve it now. And that would be a 30-day tree posting, which at that point somebody could come and protest it. So you could wind up here again and that would take longer. But then you would have our approval. And then the other thing is, she could still say, like, we value this tree more than the need for a driveway. We're still going to deny it. And then you just get into the next hearing slot, like, 10 days prior to whatever that next hearing is. So the next hearing is like October 6th, and then the one after that, so that's going to be too soon. The one after that's like October 25th. And then I think there's another hearing 2 weeks after that. And we don't have very many backlog cases. So you would be like probably the first on the list.
does that work for you, Ms. Lee?
Yes, so who should I be in contact with? Because I am aware that Miss Stacy sometimes is doing very important work outside the city.
You can email both of us. She is around full time right now, and will probably be around until next summer. But you can email both of us, because then we'll just both keep track of this permit application.
Okay.
Okay, so we're good. So I will make a recommendation to the director to continue this hearing or the decision, and the applicant and the department are going to try and work out their differences or proposals or plans or whatever it is you guys are working out. Okay, anyone else? Would anyone else like to speak on this matter? Okay, hearing none. Does anyone want to speak on anything that I've missed prior? Hearing none, we will conclude this meeting. So I want to thank everyone for their time and attention and patience, and wish you well. Thank you very much. With that, we'll conclude the meeting.